Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Good morning, Steve. Happy Thursday. And let me start by saying thank you. You know why? Because I keep reminding myself, or I'm being reminded, how thankful I am that I start my day with you each and every day at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, which we
Sometimes a
talked
little
about
after.
sometimes a little later, depending on our technical glitches. But
Yeah.
the fact that I get to have this to look forward to every day, that I get it myself up, I get showered, I get this wild hair under control as best I can, and then we get to talk for a half an hour to kick off our day. It's something that's I didn't realize it until I talked to a couple of buddies yesterday, a couple of friends who I can tell they're struggling. It's 2 weeks at least
Yeah.
that people are in lockdown and have been pretty much shut down in many ways, many businesses, even though they're still doing things here and there. This activity is what keeps me going in a lot of ways, and it keeps my mind, you know, not always positive. We've had these good days and bad days, but you know what I'm saying? It's something
No,
that I
for
really
sure.
appreciate, and I'm glad we're doing this.
No. And I've gone through the same thing. As you know, right? We've been bouncing off each other, and that's why, today I wanted to sort of start in that real positive mindset. And I did it this morning to myself, and I sort of looked, and we talked about it yesterday. And okay, I felt positive yesterday. So I'm like, okay, so what did I do? And how do I ensure I keep that positivity going forward? I have to
What did
admit,
you do?
I watch less media. No word of a lie. I
Bingo.
watched it, and part of
Yeah.
it is, as we do this and we're looking at this as to be a daily update, I almost felt compelled to watch so that we were on point. We were in setting a tone or living by the tone of the world that the media is prescribing, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
And the more I thought about that, I'm like, I never watch the news. I told you before we even started this, I never watch the news. I never consume it. And then part of me is also, if I don't, and I'm not I'm not humble to the environment that everyone's in today,
Yeah.
are we doing a disservice because I'm not? You know what I mean? But at the same
Yeah, you
time,
feel
it's
it's
like,
a civic duty, right? You should be
right,
keeping up to date, and you should be uh, aware of everything that's going on. But it's impossible for one, and two, it is a depending on which news channel. And I try to look at different sources, right? That's something even in my pre-pandemic world, I was really doing a better job in recent years, especially in the climate of our country politically. I was like trying to get the news from different sources so I could get a balanced perspective and maybe get a little bit of truth here and there and put the picture together in my mind of what's really going on, right? With the bias kind of leveled out by absorbing different perspectives. And I like the idea of different perspectives and diversity
yeah,
of views. And that's the same thing you're going to have to do here, especially as we move forward and plan for the return to the workplace eventually. I I really think you're seeing now, as we get more and more data, you got more and more people interpreting that data, and then you have all of a sudden those biases coming into play more and more. Whereas it felt like a couple 3 weeks ago, we're all in this together. Let's flatten the curve, right? Everybody was all on board, and we didn't know. We trusted the public health experts, and I think we did the right thing. I'm not changing any of those opinions. I think at this point it's working. It seems to be working. The evidence is beginning to come in. Those models are being adjusted. We talked about that yesterday, a couple days ago. So I'm hopefully optimistic. But all of a sudden, okay, what's next? All of a sudden, those feelings inside of me about, all right, who's going to cast the leadership vision for getting this culture, getting this society, getting people, friends of mine like yesterday, back into a mental mindset of returning to public life, returning to society, returning to the workplace. And it's going to be a hurdle over this psychological, defense mechanisms we put into people over the last month plus. And it's going to be a challenge. I mean,
yeah,
is that
yeah.
what you're thinking through those types of things now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm also thinking about to myself, okay, so, again, I'm trying to be so careful in choosing words because I don't want to, come across as insensitive, because that's not where this is coming from. This is more of,
Sure.
how do we look forward? How do we sort of, make sure and ensure we're all resilient, right? Each individual is resilient, and then the collective becomes resilient. So I sort of go back to, okay, so what are the things that, you know, I did that made me resilient, um, forward looking. I don't like to look backwards. Yes, we learn from past behaviors, we learn from other people's past experiences, but in essence, how do we always look forward? And actually, I listened to your podcast you released on Tuesday, and I know it was a summation, if you want, of the story of your live stream that you do each Wednesday.
Right.
And you know, I was on it, and I was like, it was March 18th that we did that, and you
Yep.
listen to the narrative, and we were just preparing for this, right?
Yes.
And while you go March 18th, today we're April 9th, it wasn't that long ago. And even when we
Very
did
fast.
that, we were still preparing for what was yet to come. And you look at the narrative and what was said there, and it's just like, this is such a short period of time.
Yep.
And it's, but again, so dialing everything back, how do we prepare ourselves mentally? And one of the things that Maddie, your co-host on that, she gave out a wonderful, um, what's the
Inspirational
right
quote. Yeah, I
inspirational quote?
asked her to
Thank you.
bring
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
inspirational quote every week.
Yeah, and she said this is her favorite one of all time, and I'm just reading it just so I don't misquote. Do something today your future self would thank you for. Right.
Yeah.
So each individual, I want to challenge each individual who watches this. And I'm going to challenge myself. I think you should challenge yourself, Mike. But what are you doing today that your future self will look back and thank you for? Right. What are the things that you always thought you wanted to do but didn't have the time to do? Right. How do you use this time to create that? How do you use this time to create that better future for yourself? Right. We all have the ability right now to evaluate how much of our lives do we really appreciate? Well, how much of our lives is really good and we actually are very, very satisfied or we want to do more of? How do we identify those things? How do we evaluate and collect those things so that we then have a period of time when, well, we don't know when society will return to normality or what that normality will look like, but how do we ensure in this time between today and then we are setting ourselves up for that future? How are we setting ourselves up so that we actually are able to do the things that we want to do and step forward? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
I know it's going to be a roller coaster. We know that we've experienced it. We interact with that each day, right? Because we go through the emotions of it.
Certainly.
Um,
Certainly.
and part of that for me was okay. I got up. I watched 20-minute summary of NBC's broadcast from last night, and I went
Right.
enough. That was it. I got my update. Okay, we know where we are. And again, I'm not trying to play down what the world is going through. I'm not trying to play down what individuals are suffering through. That's not what this is coming from. But it's more of how do we individually protect our mentality? How do we individually collect ourselves so that we're stronger for our loved ones and we're stronger for the organizations we represent? We're stronger for the things that we want to do in the future. And that's sort of the spirit with what I hope this is coming across.
That's great. No, that's perfect, man. That's exactly the message that I need to hear, that we all need to hear. And let's look forward, absolutely. But I'm going to take a moment here and thank myself from a month ago for starting the weekly live stream for iOffice. And planning to do that. That was way before we had any idea the intensity of this COVID-19 crisis would cause for our economy, for our workplaces. It was just it was an idea. The seed of the idea was based on the idea that, well, conferences were being postponed and we weren't going to be able to gather as a big group for a while. So let's have another alternative. Let's have a weekly conversation. So I thank myself, not knowing what I was getting into, that I started that weekly show. And then we did the first one together on March 18th. And you said right afterwards, we should do this daily on YouTube for Open Source Workplace. And I said, and my natural instinct was like, Steve, you want me to get up every morning and do a live stream with you at 8 a.m.? And I was, hesitant to do it at first, but I thank myself looking back. The present day Mike is thanking the past Mike for saying yes to this, because here 2 weeks later, plus we've been doing this for over 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks almost. And it is such a blessing to get up and start the day like this, even though there's been ups and downs. It's gotten me through a lot of things that I think, because I've talked to so many other people, as you have, it sounds like it's starting to wear on people.
Hmm.
It's a grind. And I've had moments of those downward spirals of too much media, too much sad news, too much worry about the future, anxiety about the things I can't control, wondering what things are going to be like, when we're going to get back to normal, and then feeling hopeless about that. So I've had those moments and I will continue to, I'm sure. But many people, if they're not busy, and again, I don't think we should be busy for the sake of being busy to block out, but this healthy balance of of doing something for yourself, as you said today, that you'll thank yourself for. And I think, not everybody needs to get on YouTube every day and live stream, but why not set up a scheduled call every morning with someone you trust, a mentor, a friend, a colleague, a family member? If you're not doing that already, there's plenty of time. The
Yeah.
future is still out there, right? So the 3-4 weeks in the past, looking through the real view, feels like 3-4 months, if not years, right? That we talked about how crazy fast this is all evolving, and how it seems like such a long time ago we had that first live stream
Hmm.
together.
Hmm.
So it's going to feel that way probably for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We don't know. So, but do think something today. Start a habit today. Schedule that appointment with someone to get things rolling, because we need it to be resilient and to be prepared for what may come.
Yeah, no, no, for sure, for sure. And it's funny when you talk about habits. I actually sat down at the start of the year and there's 12 things I want to do this year. And I says, can I get all those 12 things to be doing each day? And I'll tell you what the first one was:
Okay.
taking a cold shower each morning.
Oh, well,
I know.
that's a
So here I am in New York City,
that's a goal.
January,
Okay.
and I did that, and the whole point of it was, and I did it for 30 days. I then
Really?
started. I did it for a then continued period of time, but then I sort of fell off it. But what the reason for that is, how do we create calluses in our mind, right? How do we eliminate fear? Because to stand in the shower and turn on that cold water tap, you have no idea the mental strength that takes, the fortitude to go back and do it each day. But then something happens in your body chemistry when you do this each day. And it's amazing. And that's the reason why I wanted to do it. And there's others we can come back and we can talk about other times. Another one was meditation and gratitude, right?
Yeah,
So, and we've
sure.
spoken about that. And it's, how do we be thankful? Who are we going to give thanks for? As we go through this, we do have fear, we do feel down, but actually, if we change the mindset to think about, who can we help today? How can I help somebody today? And we go back to that original conversation where you and I had about, we want to be of more service to the industry. How do we do that?
Yep.
Right. And this was our give back. And, but to be honest, this is a give back that's actually given back to us individually as well. So therefore, by helping each other and helping the industry and trying to be of service to the industry, we're hopefully, we're giving ourselves back. And I don't know about you, at this moment in time, what's going through my head is, how can I give back more?
Mm.
Right. And that's, I have, we both have our channels, we both have our mediums. And what goes through my head is, what can I do more to help people? How can I help, people in my position who run workplaces? How can I provide them with additional information from these experts, be it experts from other companies, experts from service providers, and how do I give them updates? And that's why I've started doing those 10-minute videos, and I'm adding to those, and I'm reaching out to individuals to help do that, because that's talking about specific times, moments and times, what is being heard in the marketplace, what has been heard and experienced, what they're hearing from their peers, and how do we provide that information into people's hands. And I know that's what you're doing with your live stream as well.
Absolutely. And trying to navigate those content creation strategies is something that I still struggle with, and I'm not going to get it right. You're not going to get it right, but
Of
the
course.
heart is in the right place, right? We're trying to
Yep.
help, and I think I'm less concerned about the numbers today. How many people are watching us today is
Yeah.
less important to me. Although I love that people are watching, and I've heard some feedback that people watch the recording later. But
Yeah.
it's not about getting downloads or getting registrations for my live stream, or trying to promote anything at this point. It is really, and this is, again, I want to be as sincere as possible. We're trying to create value. So because that's what our philosophy has always been, right? Thought leadership has always been the philosophy at iOffice and our marketing. And it was always something I was really, attracted to become an employee there in their marketing department, because it was not about a sales pitch and let me try to, steer the conversation into a software sales discussion. It was about what's going on in their industry. What are people thinking? What are people doing? And then that led to a natural discussion of what are the technology tools that help. So in this environment, especially, it's distasteful. It's wrong to try to sell anything in this environment. So I think what you and I are both sincerely trying to do is just be there for our community and be there for our network, because we have a platform that many don't. But even if I didn't have this YouTube conversation each day, and if I didn't have the live stream, I didn't have the podcast, I'd still, I hope, would be talking to, like I said, friends and family on a regular basis, and seeing where they are. And I did talk to a friend yesterday I haven't talked to for a long time, and it opened my eyes to another perspective, another viewpoint, because everybody's got their story, right? Everybody's got
Hmm.
their journey. This came up on the live stream yesterday, and you were kind enough to tune in. You told me so. When my two guests, who were both amazing, Christina and Simone, both change management experts in our workplace community, and I was asking them a lot of these questions that I ask you about returning to the workplace. What's it going to take? What are you looking for? What are the signs, the data that you need to see to feel comfortable considering a return to public life or some normalcy? And they both talked about the what would they call it? Psychology of safety, or safe psychology. What's the word?
There was
Psychology of
there was
safety.
yeah, there
So
was
it's
a
this
specific
idea.
word I think they
Yeah.
used. Yeah,
So it's
but
this idea though of taking care of people's uh, worries and fears and addressing them. So I think psychological safety is the term, and what it means is that in a normal environment, what it means is your ability to feel safe sharing your opinion or speaking up in a culture, an organization. And that usually applies to teamwork and innovation and collaboration. Do you feel psychologically safe that if I offer an opinion, I won't be shot down, or I won't be, dismissed, or what have you? And in many organizations today, that's still a problem. Most people don't feel that safety. And the teams that are effective have that vulnerability where everybody's vulnerable enough to share. Well, we put that term in the context of returning to work. When will you feel safe going back to the office, back to the workplace? And the big takeaway for me, if I remember, I'm going to go rewatch that again because I really had an enjoyable conversation. I wanted to, the takeaway was it's going to be different for everybody. Your level of fear and safety because of your vulnerabilities are maybe different than mine, and my circumstances may be
hmm
different, and geographically things are different. So organizations need to be flexible, and this was both Christina and Simone's idea, that flexibility of an employer saying, we're going to head back to the office is open again. We want to welcome you back. We're going to do some things where we have a strategy to to build in some social distancing, some better disinfecting. You know, there's a whole list of things that I can talk about because I've been reading again articles from HOK, and Kay Sargent has shared with me some information about what HOK is doing to help their clients plan for that eventual return to the office. And it's amazing the thought they're putting into this, some real specific strategies. And I'm sure we'll get into those. But what it takes for me and what it takes for you is different than what it takes for others. So that flexibility of, if you're still not comfortable, still work from home, and the office is open and we're going to do this and that, and be vulnerable enough or be safe enough to say, I don't feel comfortable coming in, even if it feels like the most people are going back, and you may feel like you're missing out, or you may feel like your career is in jeopardy if you don't join the team. I think any organizational culture that can give people that comfort of safety, saying where you are today, we're okay with, is going to be important. That idea was really what popped yesterday for me.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting. As you were talking, I always go to my go-to motivational framework, and that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's that baseline of safety and security, right? And if people don't feel safe and they don't feel secure, then they can't go up through the different levels of the hierarchy of needs, where you get the self-actualization, where if you translate that into the work environment, well, that's where the innovation and collaboration and all that takes place. So if people aren't feeling safe, secure, how do they get to those other levels? I think most organizations, and I say most because there's some organizations that need to have that customer interaction, which I totally understand. But I think most organizations will be sympathetic, will be emotionally attached to employees' needs, and will provide comfort and solutions and flexibility to enable employees to do those things. I have very little doubt that will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you talk, or have, again, I think in the coming weeks, we've got time for this, but I think
Yeah.
next week we should start really sharing some of the vision of what things look like. Because I asked that poll question yesterday on the live stream, because I was debating, as you and I debate, do we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the
Mm-hmm.
here and now, what we can do in the here and now, and just being as, resigned to the fact that we're going to be in a work from home setting for a long, long time, and let's just try to give people the information they need to be their best work from home productive selves? Or do we have a vision for the future and what it looks like to get back into the workplace? And the audience was it surprised? Did you hear that poll question? The surprise
Yeah,
to me
yeah,
was that
yeah.
the vast majority, many say we should talk about both, and we do need to continue to talk about both, because it's going to be a period of time here where we have to be uh, mindful of both. But the vision is something that everybody wanted me to cast. It's like, what are you hearing? What are you talking about? And again, it goes day by day. But today I feel good about talking about the future, because the models again here on April 9th were modified again. Social distancing seems to be working. Maybe the models were over anticipating the negative impact of this. Again, one death is too many. Can't go without saying that we know that there's so much pain and suffering, but to go from 200,000 anticipated deaths in the U.S. down to 80,000 a couple of days ago to now down to, I think it was 60,000. It's quite dramatic.
Oh,
And
that's huge.
the resources are strained, have been strained in the hotspots like New York, but capacity is there, and we have been handling this quite well. Uh, and it's positive. Why not celebrate that positivity, and start to think, okay, we can manage this, and some of the treatments might start working. We might get better reports, more data about the clinical trials of some of the new drugs and new antivirals and therapeutics. Again, even if the vaccine is a year off, we have to figure out a way to start preparing people mentally for a return to public life, because I think that is the proper balance, and it's about risk and reward, and it's about individual needs and flexibility. But and I know you're resistant to some of that thought, but do you get encouraged when you hear the numbers shifting and you hear the positive news, or do you still struggle with that?
No, no, no. I think it's obviously the lower people who are going into hospitals. Obviously, that ultimately means then the less people who may lose their life to this, which is obviously a hugely positive thing. But do I think it's going to alter the timing? I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. But I do like the idea of actually start digging into, okay, what does the future look like? What does the future workplace look like? Is there increased flexibility? Do organizations take a different approach to their leasing strategies, to their, the workplace design, the attributes that they're looking to provide employees? And I think it's going to be a really interesting. We call this an experiment. There's going to be the
Yeah,
post-pandemic
yeah,
experiment.
yeah.
There's going to be and I think the experiment that we're going through at the moment, we're going to see there was this initial panic over working from home. Then there's going to be this line, I think, where there's going to be people uh, being productive while working from home.
Right.
Then we're going to get this little, probably there'll be people who continue and grow with that productivity. They're going to be those that actually fall away with that productivity just because of the circumstances. And it's going to be interesting to see how that ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
And especially if this goes for a longer period of time. And then as we then go back into the workplace, I'm really curious to see what happens. And
me
and
too.
again, I think it's going to be a positive thing. I think organizations are going to be challenged on their robustness, on their flexibility. And I think employees are going to be challenged as well. Which, look, the more we're challenged, the more flexible, the more resilient, the more, you know, uh, better we become. Because as humans, we're so much stronger than we ever give ourselves credit for.
Hmm.
You know.
Well, I shared that link with you yesterday from the Workplace
hmm
Evolutionaries. Have you had a chance
I
to take a
did.
look at
I
that?
did. I took a look, and you said it was comprehensive.
Yeah.
It sure was. I didn't get to complete it.
Yeah, it's a long journey. You
It
have to set
was,
aside a
yeah,
good 15 minutes. But
yeah,
in coming days, let me know what you think of that
yeah.
study, and if they're trying to capture the right things about. It's a work from home study, folks, that are trying to really take advantage of this opportunity to capture data around people who have, either been remote workers versus full-time office workers versus a hybrid. And then they can actually, that's probably the best if you had an opportunity to compare, your old life to the current life. But you mentioned yesterday, I still believe it. It's not exactly scientific because this is an unusual situation, the pandemic world, but it's going to give us some good information and good insight to human behavior and how we're doing. Um, but
Yeah,
I
it will.
also,
And
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The question
I
I
can
have,
talk all
and
day, Steve. You know
I
that.
know you can, I know you can, and it's always good to hear you talking all day. It's good. Um, yeah. So what goes through my head is who's going to be taking the survey. I don't know. What would be nice to be able to do is, you take the Leesman model, right, where I, as a workplace lead at an organization, can share that with my organization, and I then can see that results from my organization and then compare it as a benchmark to other organizations, right? I don't know who it's been shared with, and I'd be curious. I don't know if you know either. I don't know if it's just the IFMA community. I don't know if IFMA community then is pushing it out to their workplaces. I'd be
I think
curious
they're
to
trying to get
know.
people to spread it, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
yeah,
at least beginning to start with the
yeah,
normal
yeah.
workplace evolutionaries, which are a lot of consultants and strategists and
Right.
designers, and then it gets to their clients, hopefully, and hopefully it will snowball because I've seen it promoted across
Yeah.
different platforms.
Good. No, I can just imagine if you're a leader in an organization and you're able to
Yeah,
see your employees respond to that, given the questions that I did look at, the information is going to be powerful. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, for the final 5 minutes here, I thought we'd think about some more of that. What can we do to help our future selves, or what will our future
Hmm.
selves thank us for? And it's going to be tough because I know that we have a lot of fear and anxiety about returning to public life. We talked about sports. I imagine myself sitting in a baseball stadium, for example, watching
Hmm.
my Washington Nationals, or you go into a football arena or a soccer stadium, um, or going to a pub, or sitting. How joyful was that, being together in restaurants and pubs and bars and just happy hours. Um, and boy, we do need to find a way to help people over that hurdle again of fear, because that is so important, not just to our economy but to our culture, the human connections that take place in social settings like that. Is going to be really important. We get back to it, and as soon as we can, safely. But again, how do you balance? How do you? And again, I'm going to work on this with you every day.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know you are very cautious, and you've had from the beginning a very long-term view, and we've touched on this, that you'll feel comfortable way down the line. um but boy, we all face risks all the time, right? Going to our offices, going into cars, going into public settings where bad things happen. You can be hurt or killed or injured, or contract a disease, and that's always been the case. So what makes COVID-19 so much different? Especially now, this is an interesting too. We don't have time to talk about it today, but you keep alluding to this, and I've kind of tried to think this through. That not everybody's going to the hospital, not everybody's being counted. All the people that may have it have not been measured, have not the data. It's not part of the data points. Well, wouldn't that be a good thing if many more people had it than we know about? That means they most likely just recovered on their own. Therefore, that top line number in the denominator of number of deaths, or whatever it is. I'm not, math's not my strong suit. Whatever the number of cases versus the number of deaths, the percentage of deaths would be a lot lower percentage wise if many more people already had it and didn't have either any symptoms at all, or had mild symptoms and recovered, never went to the hospital, never got tested, never got counted. Does that help you? Does that help ease your mind if you are able to get that data that says, wow, yeah, 40% of the population actually had this thing. And yes, 60,000 people died. I'd say it's even worse than that. 100,000 people died, but it's only, you know, a small percentage of the overall, you know, contagion or spread. Does that help you? Does that make it better? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, and I totally appreciate the question, and I appreciate the sort of the way you asked it as well. So thank you. For me, look, I have to. While there's numbers that suggest many things, whether there's data that suggests many things, I'm still an individual. It's still, how will it impact me? I don't know. For all I know, I have had it, and nothing happened to me. I just don't know. But why would I put myself in harm's way. And if I didn't know, then why would I put myself in harm's way and then expose myself to other people who may not know themselves? And that's what
Yep.
I'm searching for, and that's what I'm waiting for. How and when will I know one way or the other? And then from there, because we all have to be, there's the social responsibility, and the first social responsible thing you can do is look after yourself and
Yep.
ensure that you're okay. And we always go back to, right, on the airplane, you put your mask on first before you help the person beside you. And that we all have that individual responsibility to ensure we are okay. And if
Yep.
everybody does that and does the right thing, then I'm being socially responsible for everybody else. But yeah, so I just encourage everyone to do something for their future self that they'll be thankful for, you know.
Yeah, and let's be patient. Continue this. I'm talking to
Yes.
myself first. That data will come in eventually, and that was the big takeaway for me yesterday from the live stream was we don't have enough data right now. We can talk about this, and it's good to talk about it and think about it. But until the numbers come in, we're all in the same boat here. And let's be patient with each other and patient with ourselves and care for ourselves so we look back and thank ourselves in the future. So this has been great, Steve. As always, we're going to take tomorrow off, right? Good
Yep,
Friday.
tomorrow
And
off
then
Good
we'll be
Friday.
back on
Yep.
Monday, whatever date that is. But look forward to talking to you again soon.
You take care, Mike. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.